Sounds good.
I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, January 17th meeting of the Community Preservation Committee at 6:33 p.m. And welcome. How's everybody doing?
Good. Nice to be here.
Good. Good. Remote access was okay for everyone today?
Yeah, thanks for doing it.
Hopefully this format now, all remote, might help us be a little bit more together. Our first agenda item is public comment. Anybody, please just raise your hand inside of Zoom. You'll be recognized by Joe Pesamato, our support person, and have the floor.
Just take a quick look here. There are no hands raised, Mr. Chairman.
Well, seeing none, I'd like to turn the conversation over to subcommittee people, Janet Burt and Catherine Harrison, who have been maybe take us through the progress they've made on defining a job description and hopefully ask for our input. Catherine, Janet?
Janet?
Okay, so we asked a couple of questions to Stuart, which came out of our last meeting, one of which was whether or not we could hire this person as a 1099. The other was whether he had any input from other communities about how much they pay people or how many hours they work. And the last question was, sorry, I'm trying to open my screen at the same time I'm talking to you. The last
I can
question,
pull it up too, Janet, if you want me to share it. It's up to you.
the last question was whether or not how we would put together a motion for the warrant. So Stuart's answers were fairly simple, which was basically that the warrant question, which I think Catherine, you can address this better than I, but he basically said, okay, so you just post, you don't have to post individually. Okay, this is what we're doing. Town meeting, they vote for an amount of money that we are proposing. So that was the answer to that question. Let me jump to what other communities are paying and hours. That was probably not worth sharing with you, only because there are a number that they found, like maybe 10 or 12, that Catherine and Joe and I will look at when we meet next time, which is shortly, and then share them with you maybe. But they really went from $17 an hour to $39 an hour, and they went from a stipend, let's say like $7,500,
Right.
or they went from 5 hours a week, 10 months. It was all over, and it's not a bad thing, but it was all over the park about how much people paid and whatever. So it's helpful though. It's always helpful. And Joe actually sent us couple of things today that he got, which were valuable, though only 2 of them.
Right.
For us to just look at it just gives us a perspective. And then the 1099 idea, whether should we pay as 1099 or should whatever, Stuart said that essentially the person is working for the town of Wenham, though they report to the CPC is the way we thinking that we're going to write this. And the idea would be that the town of Wenham would need to decide, do they want that to be a 1099? Do they want that to be a whatever? So it gave us a lot of good stuff to talk about. It brought us up another step, I think, from the last time that we all met at CPC. And we're going to meet again on Tuesday. Do I have that right, Joe? Right?
That's correct.
And I'm thinking that we can probably kind of wrap up on Tuesday our ideas, which then you all would vote on. Hopefully, maybe that next night, or I forget if it's Wednesday or Thursday of that week we're meeting.
Wednesday. Yeah.
But Catherine, please jump in if I missed something.
I'm just wondering, at the last meeting, we asked folks to look at what we put together so far, so to complete change. And if anyone had any comments or questions about the job description, we still have a little more work to do, but if anyone had any comments or questions about what we've done so far.
I do. I think, Catherine and Janet, you have my comments. I thought this was excellent. I thought it was very well thought out. I'm new to CPC, it's been a year, but a lot of things here resonated with me that we have to do. I didn't have anything to cross off the list. I just added a couple things like to be the liaison between town officers and employees when it comes to CPA issues and questions, just so they know they'll be integrating with whatever part of town hall or town government they need to do to get the information to support our organization. I thought when I looked at this, based on what I've seen now for a year, that 5 to 15 hours a week might be good. And I think there's going to be like, about 20 weeks where it's 15 hours a week. And Joe probably going through it for the first time is the freshest on that. But that's certainly for the committee to decide. That was my ideas. I really think that we all should take some time to review this, please. And because we have a lot of varied backgrounds on this call and a lot of varied interests. And I think it would be great to support Catherine and Janet. If you need another copy of it, please raise your hand and somebody will get it to you. But please, if you could take 10 minutes and just say, this hit me a lot. I know Alden's been in this before. I know Bonnie and Patricia are new, but still your input's important because you'll bring a fresh perspective to what we're trying to do. So I really appreciate that if you could take the time. That's it. Thank you.
And I guess, is this the way we should do this? If folks have comments that they think of, they can send them to Joe and he'll talk to the subcommittee at our meeting. Is that the way we should do that? Okay.
It works. Yeah.
In case you have comments between now and next Tuesday.
Right. So we're meeting Tuesday. So if you could just take a look at it, just, thoughts, even positive thoughts, maybe some other, anything, just can be random thoughts, ideas, whatever you're thinking, good, or maybe think about something else. Just it's always good to have another set of eyes on everything.
Yeah. So Janet, I have a question.
Sure.
I know we received the initial material about this possible position. Has there been any updated materials? Because I don't believe I have anything since the initial, distribution.
Joe, is it the only thing since that initial was the letter from Stuart, which is what I just summarized? Do we send that to everyone for tonight or not?
No, I have it here to share, but I can definitely distribute it. I've collected the data from the two towns and we have that link from Stuart, but we haven't distributed any updated information into the full committee.
All right. So is that okay to do just after the fact of our meeting so people could see it?
Yeah.
It's okay for you to submit it. Okay.
Sure.
All right. And that,
Very
Alden,
good.
that basically, that's a good question, Alden. Part of that is, well, it's basically what I just summarized very quickly, but you're right. It's better to just look at it specifically. Stuart, there were 3 issues with Stuart. Joe, bless his heart, reached out to all sorts of committees. Hasn't gotten a lot of feedback, but you got some. I mean, just even the 2 you got is helpful.
Yeah,
And
and I'm gonna
then
do one
Stuart-
more push as well.
And Stuart had someone he works with whose name is Chase, who went and looked to see what other people have done. And he said it's a couple of years old. And that was the thing that I very much summarized because it was really all over the charts, but that's okay. $17 to $39, big difference in pay.
Yeah. One more quick
as-
question, if I may.
Go ahead.
What's the deadline to give comments to Joe? What's your deadline?
Well, we're meeting, Catherine, Joe, and I are meeting Tuesday at 1 o'clock. If you could get something to us between now and Monday at midnight, we just so we
Monday
could
night,
look at
sure.
it to Tuesday.
So that's the
That
cutoff,
makes
Monday
sense.
night. Thank you. Very,
And
very
I
good.
think that there's likely, there possibly would be, I think, an update after we've reviewed. I mean, I haven't seen Stuart's letter yet. There's more data to review. So after the subcommittee meeting, we might have another update, but we'll let you know.
And for full disclosure in the
Very
big
good.
picture.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Alden. And it's in the big picture, particularly people that might be new to this. How CPC works for administrative funding, so things like pencils, if we needed it, postings, consultants, part-time workers, is we that all goes under administrative expense. And we go to the town and ask for one number. In the past, we've asked for around $7,000 or $8,000 a year. This year, if we're planning to add a part-time employee, we're going to be adding for 3 or 4 times that. So it's going to be something new to the town, so we will have to explain it, even though we don't have to break it all down. We'll explain, hopefully the group will explain why this, because someone's going to say, why is this number out of control? And then we could explain why. And we have all the backup we need, a job description, hours, what we're intending to do with it. So it's not just, we're going to just throw it at them and expect them to understand it without some feedback. Okay, thank you. Janet and Catherine, thank you very much. Do you have more to add? I don't want to cut you off.
No, thanks to Joe as well for.
No, but
Well,
Joe,
yes.
honestly, Joe, the things that Joe has sent us has saved Catherine and I a lot of time. It saved
Yes.
the 3 of us a lot of time. Joe, thank you, really.
Oh, I'm happy to help.
And I know you are, but you also sending out that whole thing to all of your people who do the same job you do. Whatever we get is great, and that wasn't something we even talked about. You did it on your own. I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joe. The next, at the end of our last meeting, we had a little bit of confusion or contention or discussion around bonding. And that's the reason why we had an amended agenda. I felt it was warranted that we talk about it as a group, and I don't think we're going to vote on anything, but just to talk about it and maybe better understand how the bonds work or what they're intending to do. And then if we need outside resources, then authorize some outside resource. So as I understand it, the town is wishing to bond, and we're not talking about the pros and cons on it. We're just talking about, can it be done, right? Talked about the pros and cons of bonding, going to the town meeting, asking to reserve CPC money for an unnamed project for an unspecified amount of money. That's the dilemma. I have advice from Stuart Saganor, who is the executive director of the CPA Coalition. So his job, if you're new to us or need a reminder, he is like the guru of CPAs. He has the knowledge base. He runs the website. He does all this lobbying on our behalf. And he goes, no way, can't be done. So I think we're going to come to a little bit of an impasse. And I want to have a discussion here. I know Alden has some background in bonding. I know, Patricia, you've done some work with building and bonds. I don't know Bonnie's background specifically, but can we have a little conversation around this? Maybe revisit what happened and then how do we go forward?
Well,
Go ahead, Alden. You're the bond expert.
no, I'm not the bond expert. I think we all understand bonds pretty well. I guess what frustrated me was it wasn't clear how much and for how many years. And was the town asking for all of the that category of funding for all those years, or just a portion of it? Because what if other eligible projects come up within that category, and we have to say, gee, we're sorry, we've allocated 100% of that money for X years to an unknown acquisition. Now, I'm not against the acquisition. I think it's great. I think what we're hearing from the Conservation Commission, that kind of a request, I won't comment on it, but I think it's overdue. So there's just too many loose ends that make it hard to get my hands around it.
Yeah.
Catherine.
So I agree with Alden. That was my concern last time. I think we do need an expert to answer questions specifically to the CPC from the CPC viewpoint on, can we bond? Do we need to know what the project, the amount, the term? Does it have to be voted every year? There were a number of questions that came up that I don't think there was anyone in the room who could answer. specifically. So I would like to, and then there's a broader question, which I'll reserve because it's not really part of this discussion. So I agree with you, Rick, that I don't know who the expert is, but I think we need to have someone who maybe has some experience with bonding and CPC and chat with them at a meeting.
Thank you. I think I want to go to Patricia. Hand is raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna clarify, Rick, you were saying that Stuart said that it was not within our right? Is that what you said at the beginning? You
That
talked
is
to him
correct. I
and
have
that
an
was-
email from him. I specifically requested a ruling on this from him because he's our
Yeah.
first go-to guy.
Yeah, I think that's really smart and really helpful. And I guess my only follow-up to that, I mean, I think Alden and Catherine asked really great questions if we were ever faced with that again, or when would a bond be acceptable? It'd be good to just generally know, but are there also similar concerns about the Conservation Commission submission, given that it's similarly we're not really sure what it's going for, but is it appropriate because it's a full sum of money?
That's a little out of this conversation.
sure.
So can we park that? And if we have
Yeah,
time
sure.
at the end of the evening where we have other business not anticipated by the chair, can we
Okay.
put that under there? But what I want to, thank you, Patricia, for your comments. And my concern is the town represented in the last meeting that this can be done. And I have an email from the town administrator, which says that both KP Law and the Bond Council said this could be done. So that's the conflict, right? Our lawyer, who we normally go to, is saying it can be done. The CPA, who knows the law like the back of their head, says it can't be done. We're in the middle, and I want to make sure that by the time it's time for our deliberations, we have an independent answer, which is why I'd like to follow up on Go ahead. Oh, sorry. I'll take the
Well,
seat.
finish.
Alden.
Go ahead, finish.
That we
Finish
could
your
have
statement, yeah.
we would have a way to go forward and get an independent opinion, because we have these two things, and I don't think KP Law can be neutral if they're, you know what I mean? We need a neutral third party.
Okay, quick question.
Alden.
Are you able to share with us the legal opinion from town council and Stuart's email, so that at least we can read the primary source?
All I have is a
Document.
promise to get a written, so I did not have a written opinion. I had a comment from the town administrator saying they approved it. I have since responded to that email saying I need to have an official opinion in writing, which I'll share with everybody. And
Okay.
I need to have several examples of towns that have done such financing, so that we could reach out to them as a group to see how that would go. As soon as I get that, I'll share it all. But right now it's just,
Okay.
he said stuff that
Yeah,
I
thank
don't
you.
think benefits anybody.
Rick, that was
So-
a great thing. That was great to
I-
follow up and ask for other examples of where this has been done.
So I could share the letter from Stuart because I have it on my computer. But Joe, you had said that's something you will send out to everybody. Is that right?
There you go. Sorry, Joe, you're muted.
Man, I'm the one always telling people that.
Yeah, really.
Let's see here. Just want to make sure I have the correct email here. Janet, it's the one that begins with most of the issues you're asking about are governed by local town personnel. That one?
I believe so. Let me just double check so that we don't share some recipe that's in my
Yeah,
email.
we could do this tomorrow morning if that's okay. Because there's some things that I might want redacted out of there. So before we send it on. So if we could just get a minute to review that tomorrow morning, that would be great.
Sure.
But Alden, yes, it'll go out. At least those specific
Thank you.
questions, because there was a long thread. It went on and it went on and went on.
Yeah,
And you
Yeah,
it
didn't
was.
get-
yeah.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Then you'd have it all so that you could have all your thoughts before our next Tuesday meeting.
Correct.
That'd be great.
Other questions on this topic? Great.
Maybe not a question, but so are we thinking about finding a specialty on bonds, or are we still just thinking about whether we want to think about that, Rick?
Oh, you know what? Let's do this. Thank you. I would entertain a motion that would authorize me to bring up to you recommendations for an outside bond counsel with specific expertise in CPA law that we could later engage. I don't know how to phrase that, but I'm not going to make any decisions. I want your authorization to go out there and look for somebody. Could somebody make a motion and we could talk about it?
I would make a motion for exactly what you just said. For you to pursue someone who's a specialty in bond issues to give us the right information we need as an independent party.
Can I just
Is that
add
good
bond
enough?
issues relative to CPC? Because I
Yes.
think that's,
Will you accept that amendment, Janet? I'm sorry, my Rogers rules of order, really.
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so the motion is can we repeat it one more time? To authorize Rick Woodland to go and find a couple names of experts in the area of CPA bonding to be presented to the committee as soon as feasible.
Could I make a suggestion to that?
Just repeat it in the way you want. I just need to get
Okay.
something going.
I'm thinking that I would authorize that a motion to authorize you to get information from Stuart, since he's our person, about somebody that could advise us legally on the bond issues so that we have the right perspective legally as to what can happen and what cannot happen
Okay, let's second that. Somebody
relative to
Second.
CPC.
second. All in
Yeah.
favor, you do a roll call because we are remote. Bonnie,
Third.
Patricia,
Agreed.
Alden,
Yes.
Catherine,
yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Rick, yes, unanimously passes. Thank you. I will go do that and report back to the team, hopefully by our next meeting. That would be my goal. Which brings us to 6:55. Oh, wow, we're on schedule. Again, we're going to hear tonight from 4 applicants for the CPC funding in fiscal year 2025. Again, we're here on a listening and fact-finding mission tonight. We're not here to debate really the merits of it or debate our opinions on it, but just to hear everybody through and ask reasonable questions so that we can make better formed decisions. If there are questions we can't answer or questions that you want to submit privately for whatever reason, please feel free to forward them to Joe and he will forward them to the appropriate applicant. Do we have any comments before we get going? Great. First on our list tonight is a request from the Affordable Housing Trust. Is there anyone here from there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing anyone, as well as no one from the museum, but I do see Deirdre Parati is here, Kate Mallory for the Wolf Memorial Garden application. I know that's out of order on the agenda.
Oh, well, I think we're flexible, right, folks? Because if the other ones aren't here, we don't have to listen to them tonight. So we
There you
get to go
go.
home early. If the applicant, Mallory, Parati, and Mulroney, doesn't mind going first, feel free to present. Thank you.
Hi, Deirdre.
Hello, everyone. So nice to
welcome.
see you all. And this is great. We're happy to go early. If that works for you all.
Yeah, so you'll have 20, so 15 minutes to make a presentation and then 10 minutes in question and answers. And if we need more time, we'll take a vote and extend the time by 10 more minutes. Okay?
Great.
Right.
Sounds good. Joe, are you able to bring up the slides?
Sure. Yes, I can do that for you. Just give me 1 second, please.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight. We're delighted to be here and excited to talk about this project. So we are proposing the rehabilitation and renovation of the Karen Wolf Memorial Garden, which is located adjacent to the Bucher School and the School Administration Building, and it's directly across School Street from the Council on Aging. Presenting on behalf
In a minute, you'll be able to.
Are we good?
Yeah, there you go.
Presenting on behalf of our.
One moment, sorry to interrupt
Okay.
you, Deidre. If
That's
you are
okay.
not presenting right now, could you just mute yourself so we could cut the background noise? Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. So I'm presenting on behalf of our little garden team, which is myself, Kate Mallory, our Conservation and Open Space Coordinator, and Wynn Mulry, who is our Wenham Tree Warden. So next slide, please. So we're looking to rehabilitate the garden because although I think it was a lovely idea and a lovely space, it has unfortunately fallen into some level of disrepair. And these pictures are from December 2023, and certainly that's not the best time to photograph a garden. But what we wanted to be able to show is sort of the level of disrepair. And actually, when we were there in August and September, the overgrowth is so significant that it was difficult to see what sort of the original intent was in terms of the built features. So we could actually distinguish the original intent a little better in December when everything had sort of disappeared a bit. So as you can see from the pictures, there's a few things that are sort of need to be addressed. The plantings really have significantly overgrown. There are still some pollinator plants present, but there's also a lot of just grass and sort of weeds that are not so much attracting pollinators. There's a lot of broken fencing that's sort of split, laying on the ground and so forth. The gates really are not functional any longer. The seating is quite limited. It's really just this one bench that's not particularly appealing or attractive to be sitting in. The pathways in September and that time of year were actually not distinguishable, and you couldn't access them because the overgrowth was so significant. Same for these other features. There is a stone engraved bench, memorial bench, which is quite nice, but you couldn't access it or really get to it, along with this nice wooden footbridge. Those we would intend to repurpose. So the idea is really just to restore this to the original intent, make it an accessible space for the community, again, the Bucher community, the Council on Aging, and the community at large. So next slide, please. So this is not a scale model, but just sort of an illustrative rendering of what our thinking is and how we would like to renovate the garden. So we do think that it needs sort of a full-scale leveling to kind of start over and replace a lot of the features. So what we would like to do is to have the low stone walls in two of the corners, which would then create sort of seating areas from which you could enjoy the garden. The walls would be similar to what has been done at the Wenham Museum, where you could actually sit to enjoy the space. You could bring a group or a classroom and have the benches and the walls to enjoy the space in. The pollinator plants and gardens would be more concentrated so that as they do progress towards a little bit more wild space, they wouldn't overtake the entire space, but they would be somewhat contained. We'd like to do some shrubbery and taller plantings at the back to sort of soften the lines of the administration building behind it. And to have a bit of the built features, as I mentioned, the stone bench and the footbridge with some stones and rocks to create pollinator resting areas and access to some water for them. And then we would like to incorporate some of these galvanized planters so that they could be used for annuals, for vegetables, for herbs, sort of whatever people would like to do here. And I'll speak to that in a little bit more in a minute. And the main, yeah, as I said, the main entrance would be towards School Street. Okay, next slide. So we think that this proposed project fits very nicely with the CPA goals, preserving open space and creating outdoor recreational facilities. It also dovetails really nicely with the Wenham Master Plan goals. As most of you know, the master plan is sort of nearing completion. It fits very nicely with 3 goals in particular, which is encouraging the creation of intergenerational recreation areas and gathering spaces, to promote sustainable landscaping on public and private property in order to increase pollinator habitat, and to increase the use and visibility of outdoor recreation spaces and add more public amenities. So we think this fits really nicely with the master plan. Next slide. So this is the budget that we came up with, and as I mentioned, we do think that it will need sort of a full-scale excavation to really start over, and we have thought about the elements with trying to create a space that is as low maintenance as possible. So we intend to add more of those hardscape features, including some mix of concrete and ground stone dust pathways in those open spaces and seating areas, be an easier area to maintain. So we've just split the budget into those hardscape structural elements and sort of the plant materials and mulch and benches and garden features, etc. So we currently are estimating it to be at $54,000. Next slide. So the question that I know is on everyone's mind is, what about maintenance? And as you know, every sort of built feature in our environment requires some level of maintenance. So unfortunately, not realistic to think of it as no maintenance, but we are trying to get it as low maintenance as possible. Currently, the DPW for the town of Wenham manages the mowing around the perimeter, and if there are grass spaces inside, they would handle that also. The school district has a contract for leaf blowing in the fall, so that would continue to be handled through that. We would like to request, when this goes out to bid, that the contractor agree to donate 3 years of maintenance to sort of get the garden off and running and make sure the plants take and so forth and so on, and sort of set us on the right track. We have a teacher, Nicole Gray at Bucher School, who also manages a vegetable garden behind Bucher, and she is willing to incorporate the planters that we're proposing in her sort of summer maintenance program, and doing the planting and maintenance over the summer, where she recruits Bucher families to sort of help out and take a week and so forth. And then we sort of have been brainstorming some creative ideas. So as part of the master plan process, there was a lot of interest expressed in these sort of pollinator plantings, as well as creating pocket parks throughout town. So the maintenance issue is one that we would like to tackle, not just for this space, but also to be able to expand and do more of this throughout town. So some of the ideas include incorporating this into the senior tax work-off program, using it as an opportunity for high school students to fulfill their community service hours, possibly creating community service days, maybe once in fall and once in spring, to do some cleanup, incorporating some level of maintenance into the town land use budget, and also collaborating with town and not-for-profit groups to collaboratively maintain these garden areas, hopefully throughout Wenham. But we think that this would be sort of a great contribution to the community to return this really lovely space back to something that is really usable, accessible, and welcoming, and also serving the purpose of providing pollinator habitat, being a monarch way station, and all of those things were intended with the original use. Next slide. So thank you very much for your consideration. We appreciate the time of the committee and the opportunity to present, and we're happy to try to answer questions that you might have.
Well, thank you, Deirdre, Kate, and Wynn. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was very straightforward. I'd like to open up now call to anybody, the Zoom to anybody that might have questions for the team. Please proceed. Just raise your hand and you'll be recognized. Oh, Patricia?
Thanks for your presentation. I just noticed in the budget that you don't have a line item for any soft costs, like actual professional fees, design fees. How do you plan on covering that? Is there another budget that's not just construction oriented?
So I'm not sure if Win is on the call, but Kate, maybe you might be able to add to it. So my understanding is Win priced a lot of this budget for us, and I believe that he's incorporated those costs into the line items.
So sorry, just I guess you're not working with like a professional service or like an architect or a landscape architect or no, just the
No.
contractor and someone on staff. Is that? Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, nice to meet you.
Yep, nice to meet you too. I mean, besides tree warden, I've got 35 years of experience in the landscape, construction and maintenance industry. So I mean, we'll probably be doing, Kate, Deidre and I have talked about this and, just coming up with a list of native plants to use that are a lot lower maintenance, and just doing a lot of that in-house. So, yep.
Cool. Okay, thanks for that explanation.
Yep.
So, Deidre, I have a question. How long ago was this originally created for Karen Wolf? I know she was a principal at the time. How many years ago was that?
Win.
She wasn't a principal. She was a special ed instructor. I think it was in one of the later grades of the elementary school. I know, I think both of my brothers had her as a teacher, and I know at least one of my children had her. So I think she passed away. I gotta think about it. It was probably, back in, my oldest was born in 96. Maybe she was 9 or 11. So, I think she might've passed away back in 2008 or so. So, this garden was put in around that time, and yeah.
I think it was around 2010, which I didn't find a whole lot of information about the background, but I believe it was around 2010.
So I have a lot of questions, but I don't know if they can be answered tonight. I just feel like I live across the street and it's been, I'm going to say 15 years, this has been a mess. And it certainly could become something really very lovely. No one has done anything with it in so many years. I love the idea of doing local plants and cleaning it up and making it a pollinator. It's a great idea. I guess this is me with the glasses half empty, that I worry that this gets done and then it doesn't stay well done because, it's hard. Who would be in charge? That would be really, I guess, really my only question. I think it's a fabulous, fabulous idea. The senior center probably can't take care of it because they've got a lot of stuff they're having to do. I like the idea of 3 years. I think you said, Deidre, the landscaper who might be involved, give them 3 years of commitment. But then what happens? I know we can't make it magic for 20 years, but it concerns me that it's such a visual place. We go in to vote, we drive in there, we see it. When it was originally created as, I believe I have it right, it's like an English garden. So lovely, so beautiful. And there has to be a lot of really good plantings in there now that can probably be revived. I'm not saying any of this is a bad thing. It's just the kind of stuff that I worry about. Like, let's do it. Let's make it beautiful. But how do we know it? Because it's unlike, let's just say, the tea house. If we just unfit the tea house people are always committed to the tea house. This is a piece of property next to one of our schools. So then people move on, and then who takes care of it? That's my only concern.
Maybe I could
And I
ask,
don't think there's a magic answer to that, but I love what you've all thought about. I do. I love it. But I think we
Thank
need
you.
to think about those issues also.
Thank you, Janet. Maybe we could ask the team to come up with a little bit more detail on
Yeah, that'd be great.
how it would be maintained. Great, thank you.
Could I say something? This is Kate.
Yeah, hi, Kate.
Hi, guys. So I think my thought and Deirdre's thought when we were talking about the maintenance issue was if we want to do more of these community gardens throughout town, it's such a wonderful thing for town. And so more than likely it would be put into my job description to make sure that it is maintained. And like Deirdre said, maybe we would be going in the future for money for the land use budget. This should not be an expensive maintenance issue. It's not something that will cost thousands of dollars a year to maintain. It probably only needs maintenance a couple times a year. So for the upkeep, it would probably be myself or the person in this position in the future written in the job description. So it would be one maintained really well.
Well, Kate, that definitely answers my question. You're in charge. I like that. Sorry, I didn't even know
Thanks,
my
Janet.
video was up. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I like that, Kate. Good
Yeah.
answer.
Well, and can I just add, Rick, just again, we've definitely kept that forefront of mind, knowing that that would be a question you would ask. So we really did try to incorporate it into the design, to try to have the design be as low maintenance as possible and sort of as best as we can do to help it hold its shape going into the future. So that, as Kate said, it really wouldn't be a monumental maintenance job. Although it is still a garden, you know, at some point, some plants will need to be replaced or thinned and so forth. Nothing like this is maintenance free. So we definitely acknowledge
Right.
it.
Great, thank you. Alden?
Question? Yes, can anybody tell us, maybe it was in your presentation and I missed it. What's the area? What's the dimensions, the square footage of this garden?
Kate or Wendy, do you remember? I know we took the measurements.
I think it's around, oh, go ahead, Win, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Kate.
I think it was around 50 feet or 60 feet on each side.
I think it was
I think-
60 by 50, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 60 by 60,
60, something
roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to take, if I could just comment, it's going to take a lot more maintenance than a couple of times a year. If you have a planter beds and then watering too.
I think the idea is that the planting beds would be more native plants so that they wouldn't require watering, and the watering would be more limited to the planter boxes, those galvanized sort of steel drums, which would be incorporated into the Bucher Vegetable Garden program. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for the team?
I think Bonnie, were you trying to say something? I didn't catch it.
Oh, I thought I was going to clarify the question about how many feet. I thought it was on slide 2. That's all.
I don't think I had it there, but that would have been a good idea.
My daughter, I raised my hand earlier and then lowered it. My daughter is a kindergartner at Bucher, and as she trotted by, I had her look at the screen and she was jumping for joy. She thought it was so.
Oh, that's lovely.
Good. Great. Well, thank you for your presentation, Deirdre, Win, and Kate. And thank you. I think we can close this session if that's okay.
Sure.
And look forward to seeing you soon. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Deirdre.
thank you for your
Kate,
presentation.
and Win. Thanks.
and now we see Kristen. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. We're running a little early as the first party, the Affordable Housing Trust, for some reason couldn't make it. So
They are here, Mr. Chairman. I see.
Hey, Rick, the Affordable Housing Trust is all here. Can you see us?
Oh, I didn't know what you were doing. I see you all there now. I
We
had
we
no
were
idea.
able to use the owl. We had our meeting on Owl, and so we were able to use it to join yours. I didn't think it would work, but so they actually have a quorum of the board here, the trust. So just so you know, they are here.
Oh, great. So Kristen, we're gonna switch back to them. I did not know they were here because it said HW Cam on it, and I'm like, I don't know why we're broadcasting on HW Cam.
I don't know
So if
why.
you
No
hang on,
problem.
Kristen, we'll go back to
Yeah.
the Affordable Housing Trust.
Can they see us?
Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Can you see us, Rick?
Yes, yes.
Rick, I'm just going to ask this committee to open their meeting because they do have a quorum. There are 5 members here, so I'm just going to ask them to open their meeting so that they can all discuss if necessary.
Great, thank you.
All right, so the Wenham Affordable Housing Trust meeting at 7:20 with the CPC is now open. Roll call, please. Lori present. Judy present.
Erica present.
Huntley present.
Gary present.
Meeting is open.
Thank you.
So I'd like to turn over the floor to the Affordable Housing Trust and have them make their presentation on their proposal to request a 10% set aside.
Thank you. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Joe's got thumbs up. Joe's got thumbs up. All right. All right. So the trust has spent over $800,000 to create 47 affordable units. And the subsidized housing inventory in Wenham is now 12.8%, which is quite impressive for our community. And we're very proud of the fact that we've been able to do that. We're in imminent completion of the Maplewoods property. This spring will be ready to go. And we're at the end of our action plan in 2023, and we have some goals that we have reached and are surpassing. So we're pretty proud of the work that has been done. The trust is currently negotiating an affordable unit in Parsons Hill subdivision that was in danger of foreclosure. We're in the process of acquiring that unit. So that's been very exciting for that particular woman because she's on the Maplewoods. She got her Wenham, and we're excited for her. So we're trying to help her along so that she can complete this process. And we've been working with that for this past year. So we are also working with the planning board to create some zoning regulations that will require affordable units for all residential development. We're going to implement through the trust to become a source for these units and to try to create when developers come in to the town that they must have an affordable unit within 5 to 7 houses so that we can continue to keep our SHI healthy. Habitat for Humanity has also contacted us and is submitting applications to do some 40B in the Spring Hill area. And that is in the process of being requested and funded. So we're excited to see that that is happening. We've worked with Habitat many times before and are very grateful to have their partnership in Wenham. We're also facing some potential unprecedented development over the next years with the MBTA group. The regulations and implementation of that with large tracts of land that can possibly come up for sale. We want to make sure that there's opportunity there for us to add some affordable units within that possible to be determined amount of land that might become available to us to keep, because that would be a lot of development if the MBTA piece sells. So our goal then is to continue to add to the funds for the trust in order to be ready at a moment's notice, sort of like an emergency. If we needed to go ahead and buy up some land, we want to have the funds to be able to do that. So we're also looking at first-time home buyers, being able to help them once this our Maplewood project is done and we can move forward. We want to make it possible for people to come into the town of Wenham. And sometimes a first-time home buyer could get some support from us, and so the funds would be wonderful to have available for that. So we're also looking at replenishing the funds so that we have a quick turnaround opportunity if something like a 61A or B property comes up and we have right of first refusal. It would make it really wonderful for us if we could just be able to respond in a quick and efficient way on that. We're going to be also working with keeping our town units up so that we do not fall below the 10%. And we also want to have funds that are available to us to continue to do that. So that is pretty much what we've been so grateful to all of your work and allowing us to have these funds available. This is our main source of funding. And we have many projects that are sort of in the pipeline at the moment. And we would like to be able to continue that so that we can move into helping young families and those who are seniors here to be able to stay in their homes, and for young families to be able to come into the community in a way that's affordable for them. So thank you so much. This is our presentation for tonight. And unless there's other things that we'd like to add from the committee, we request our 10% for this year.
Thank you, Huntley. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, and you've totally been in your time frame. The presentation is about 15 minutes, and then about 10 minutes for discussion and questions. So if it's okay with you, you are under on your presentation time. We can spend the next about 10 to 15 minutes with any questions that may come from the CPC here.
Yeah, I'm open for questions.
Great, thank you. Anyone questions? Ms. Harrison. Unmute, please. Unmute, please.
Yeah, hear her.
She's going to unmute.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Sorry. So first of all, thank you to the Affordable Housing Trust for all the work that you've been doing. And it's great. And thank you for all of the planning and thinking and work. So that I'll start with that. I have a couple. I'm going to try to get a multi-part question here. These are all pretty factual, hopefully easy questions. So I'm curious, I've lost track, I'm sorry, but I'm curious as to what the present balance is in the trust. If we don't know that off the top of our head, you can answer another time.
Yeah.
600.
So, Catherine, we actually did, this is Margaret Hoffman.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi. We've been trying to ascertain that. We know that the 600,000 went in last year. So we feel we're in the $600,000 or $700,000 range, but I don't have that actual number that I could give you tonight, but I can get that to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, actually, our process will be, if you can submit all of your answers to Joe Pasamato, and then he'll forward them to the appropriate group. Okay, great.
Okay,
thank you.
very good.
Can I squeeze in another quick one?
Sure.
So this is I just don't remember the answer to this. I know that when Spring Hill was under development, they had a commitment, I guess, to affordable houses. I know it's at least one. Is it one or two that they're committed to?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could take that, no, actually, the decision from the planning board when they developed that was 2 and hopefully 3. Spring Hill developers did create that unit on Dodges Row that is an affordable unit that's counted on our SHI. Their next step is they just gave a lot to Habitat for Humanity. That's what Huntley was referring to, that Habitat's now contacted us to submit it. It'll be a friendly 40B, a small 2-unit, not small, but it'll be a 2-unit building. So the developers don't have specific requirements to do that. But they've given us 1 full unit and they're donating the land for the other ones.
Okay. I asked the question because I knew that there was some requirement in the development agreement. And so it seemed like the funding for Habitat or anybody else would come from the developers. That wouldn't necessarily
Yes.
be a town-funded project. Okay,
That,
thank you very
that is-
much.
It's a good point, Catherine, and I believe that's something the planning board will be discussing with the developers.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. Other questions? I just have a little comment. I do believe what you're doing is great. As an ex-member of the committee, I'm totally committed to affordable housing. Just to let you know a little bit of the lay of the land this year, we're getting a lot of requests for unspecified funding requests, whereas the CPC in the past has looked at a project, evaluated it to see if it was, first of all, did it fit one of the buckets, right? And then if it did fit the buckets, would it be appropriate for the town's money to be spent on it? It might be helpful, just suggestion, that if you do have a specific project, you could pin this request to, so that the town people could also see, oh, our money is going here or there. It might help, and you have total time to amend your proposal, so it won't affect you anyway. Just it might help with the town's approval process, given what I understand. But thank you. It's a great presentation, Huntley. You're great. Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Excuse me, if I could, Rick, we had I spoke briefly to the town's finance director. We're not quite sure how much this 10% will be. That's why there's not a specific amount in there. Is that an amount that the CPC would be able to give us and tell us what that would be? Then we can amend the application with a specific amount, or is that necessary, do you feel?
I can give you the amount that I now have from the finance director, so that can be forwarded to you. I just got that last week.
Okay.
Based on town tax receipts. The matching grant can't be asked for at this point because it hasn't, the state Commonwealth's matching grant hasn't been given to us, so I can't include that as part of it. But specifically, it would be great to pin a project to the request.
Okay.
Thanks. But yes, I can get that number for you in the morning. Thank you. Other questions, folks? Well, I really want to thank you, Affordable Housing Trust, for having a special meeting just for us. That was great. It was really surprised that that's what HWCAM was there for. So I apologize for anything and making you late, but I really appreciate your time. And if we do have questions, we'll reach out to, I guess, Margaret, and then you can communicate back to Joe, and then the answers will get transmitted around.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And now we can come to Kristen. Thank you. It's 7:31. Just want to be mindful. Welcome. The format you may know is about a 15-minute presentation of your choice, and then about 10 minutes for questions and answers. And then if we need to extend, we'll just take a vote of the committee and we'll extend for 10 more minutes. Okay?
Okay.
The
That
platform.
sounds great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Joe, if you would not mind putting up the PowerPoint presentation that I sent to you. I have summarized both of our applications in about a 20-slide PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint begins with our application relating to a request for funding to replace the roof on the Claflin Garish Richards house. The Claflin house is a first period colonial house. The first room was constructed on site where the museum is currently located in about 1660. It's on the National Register, and it is in need of some roof repair. So I'll just let Joe get that open just so everyone can orientate themselves. I'm sure you drive by the house numerous times a day if you're not familiar with it, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. Thanks, Joe.
No problem. All righty. Can everyone see that
All right.
okay?
Yes.
Okay, if you don't mind just advancing to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. And the Claflin Garish Richards house that we're discussing is the brown house that you're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen. And Joe, if you could go to the next slide. And this is a close-up photo of the house in better weather. And this photo is about 25 years old, just to give you a little sense of context on when, what the roof looks like, in that photo, and also of the house. And next slide, please. And this is a historic photo that we have in the collection that's about 100 years old, when the Claflin Family Association had a party outside of the house, had one of their reunions in the early 1920s. And you can see that the house has been, shingled since that time and has continued to have been so. If you could go to the next slide, Joe. Thank you. This is a view of the roof as seen from the vantage point of the town hall parking lot. This picture was taken in December of 2023. And hopefully you can tell on your photo on your screen that we're starting to see some shingle loss and damage. And Joe, if you go to the next slide, please. I've tried to highlight in yellow some of the places by circling them with that sort of yellow computer highlighter where we're starting to get this area of loss. We do, replace shingles and do kind of basic maintenance over time, but it's getting to the point that we're really past chasing, occasional roof shingle replacement, and really do need to replace the shingles on both sides of the roof. Joe, if you don't mind going to the next slide, I'll show you the other side of the roof as if you were driving north on 1A. So this is the south facing side of the roof, which is in slightly better shape because it gets a little bit more sun. So it's a bit more likely to dry out. But again, Joe, if you could go to the next slide, I also tried to highlight some areas where we're starting to see shingle loss and disrepair. So we have spoken to a local house right named Glenn Batten. He's formerly of Hamilton, presently of Essex, who has done most of the past work over the last 10 years on this property, as well as for other historic homes in Essex and Middlesex County, and for historic New England and the like, to get an estimate from him, a quote, not to exceed, estimate for reshingling the roof with the same conditions that presently exist, which would be a cedar shingle. And he has recommended a flame retardant cedar shingle. We do not, presently use the chimney or the fireplaces in the house. We don't, anticipate doing that, within the next several years. But I think this is the best practice with historic preservation at the moment. And he has priced out what that work would be to replace these shingles. As you may know, when you attempt carpentry on any structure, particularly one that's closing in and 400 years old, sometimes you do find other carpentry issues. So he has put some allowance in his budget for that he's not 100% certain what lies between the exterior shingles in the roofing in the attic. He believes there's another layer of sheathing there. Some of that may need to be replaced as he gets into his work, as well as some of the rake boards and the fascia boards, which are the trim boards around the roof. So he has put together an estimate, which I included in our grant application, for time and materials. We also have reviewed this application with the Historic District Commission, and they have issued a certificate of appropriateness for replacing the roof and any related fascia and rake boards with like-kind materials. Joe, if you could go to the next slide, please. I just have summarized all of those facts right here. Should we be successful in getting a grant, at town meeting, should this matter proceed, we would plan to do the project in the construction season of 2025. If we could do it earlier, we will, but I think in terms of the lead time needed to make sure all of the paperwork is in order the materials, and schedule things around in and around other projects that the house right may have going on. We're targeting that as the ideal time frame to do this work. You're welcome, of course, to come, to the museum, take a look at the roof if you want to walk around yourselves. Right now, it does have a little layer of snow on top of it, but I do anticipate, the way our weather's been lately, at least in the next couple of weeks, that will probably be melted. So, we welcome you to do that if you would like. I'm happy to answer any questions, Rick, if you think that's appropriate about this application, or if you wish, I can proceed to the second application.
My turn to forget to unmute. Sorry. Thank you, Kristen, for your presentation. I think it might be appropriate for us to take questions for the first presentation now, because they are very different. So I'd like to open it up to the team here. If there are any questions of Kristen. Alden?
Yes. Hi, Kristen. Alden Drake. Thank you for your presentation and the good work you do. Does anybody know when that shingle roof was installed originally? How old is it?
So our best guess is that it was done in the 90s. We have made a diligent search of records to try to figure out, in the back files when it was last done. The reason we say the 90s is because there was a substantial renovation and expansion of the museum itself in the late 1990s, and a lot of work was done at that time, which, believe it or not, is 25 years or more years old right now, and is starting to need to be redone. So for example, we just learned that our 25-year-old light fixtures on the rear exterior of the building have all basically failed, and I know a lot of people in town think of the museum still as the new building, but 1998 was a while ago at this point. So that's our best guess of when it was.
All right, thank you. Two other easy questions.
Sure.
Are there any active leaks on the ceilings of the building? And then secondly, are fire retardant shingles supposed to last longer?
So as to the first question, there are no active leaks. We do monitor roofing to try to prevent that type of thing. And the carpenter that we use, Glenn, is on the property, more often than we might like, to troubleshoot various things. And we have been able to keep up with issues. As regard to the second question, I actually don't know if they're supposed to last longer than regular cedar shingles, but I'm happy to ask and to submit that information to Joe if that's helpful.
Yeah. So, and are they red cedar or white cedar?
I believe they're treated.
In the proposal.
Yeah.
So red or white species, the wood species.
I can find that out as well. I think it's white, but I'm not sure. I'll find out.
Okay.
Thank you, Alden. And Kristen, I have a question. I live in a house that's about 30 years younger than that building.
Yeah.
You're planning on keeping the wavy roof and the purlin inside of the under the roof. I assume it's a purlin structure, not regular 2x8s. Are you planning on waving the roof or?
No, we're not planning on changing anything structural with the property. We're only really focusing on the exterior building, envelope types of issues.
Great. Thank you for that answer. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyone else with questions? Patricia?
I have one, or maybe two. I guess I'm just wondering about the advice on going for a fire retardant shingle, and maybe just better understanding, and the rest of the building wouldn't be fire protected in any way. And so I'm just wondering of the logic of investing in a fire retardant roof when everything else is untreated and also made out of wood, if that's a necessary, if you guys have, I'd love to know a little bit more about the pros and cons in that decision and the recommendation. And then I guess questioning if you wouldn't get a second opinion before spending that amount of money.
So why not to do it? Yep. I can investigate that. I know our curator spoke with our vendor about this as to why this was the advantageous thing. Part of it was that we have also been investigating lining the chimney of the old house to make the chimney usable, because one of the best ways of preserving that chimney and that masonry is actually to use it so that heat from fires would dry out the mortar and help prevent it from deteriorating. So originally, when we filed our preliminary proposal for this grant, we had also included contemplating lining and repairing the chimney. Because that is going to be a much more significant project and we feel like we need more time internally to prepare for it, we have struck that from this application. but with looking to an eye to the future to be able to potentially use at least 2 of the flues in there, we had put that on there. So I think we're probably, 6 to 12 months out from having an answer on that, because the chimney is so large. It actually is not addressed by the building code. So I have to say, like, the town's building inspector, the fire department, like, everybody has been great and working with us and our vendor and trying to come up with what would be an appropriate and safe way to line and preserve these chimneys. But I think it's really going to take some more time, and it's also it's a very expensive project. So just to be sure that we're going to go forth with that, that's what we're going to do. And I think it would be really unfortunate to go through the trouble of reshingling now and then feel like in another few years we picked the wrong product, to potentially make the chimney usable. So it's my understanding there's not a huge price differential between the flame retardant and not, and that's a recommended product, but I can definitely investigate the pros and cons of doing that. And if there's substantial savings, and I can also double check with him if it's a requirement of the town's building code, because it may be, and I just don't know. So
yeah, that'd be great to know. Thank you for that.
One thing in favor of the retardant roof shingles is with the change in climate, we're seeing more forest fires and fires that are just not expected in very unexpected places. And I understand that a lot of people are just going to the shake roof with fire retardant in case there is a neighborhood fire and you're not worried about embers falling. So that's just it seems like it's really far-fetched, right? But it's really not. Considering how much litter is on the Autobahn and other conservation lots right now. So thank you. Other questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I'll find those answers and get them to Joe.
Okay, next presentation. We'll start the clock at 7:45.
Okay.
Ish.
All right, Joe, and if you don't mind sharing your screen again, thank you so much. For our second application, we have filed a request to continue processing and preserving and digitizing archival records and collections that the Wenham Museum has, in its collection. And Joe, if you could go to the next slide. This in a lot of ways is an ongoing project of the museum, but we are looking at it with renewed urgency in light of the master planning process that the town has been undergoing and has nearly completed. And, we are aware that the sort of emerging theme 5 of this plan, which is, roughly 20% of the plan, focuses on Wenham's story and its historic resources, and particularly references the Wenham Museum as a partner and community, collaborator in helping to bring this goal to life. Internally, we are thrilled about this, and also just a wee bit concerned because we didn't necessarily have this in our plan for the next few years, but are happy, to do that, particularly if we can help get underwriting from various sources to really get these collections organized and then made easily, enjoyed and consumed, by the local community and the public. So on this slide, I have summarized that goal from the master planning document. Joe, if you could go to the next slide. The spaces that we're talking about in the museum are 2 rooms. One, which is the bulk of the content, is the Dodge Archives room. The Dodge family had given funds to the museum back in the 90s to help create this space. If you go to the next slide. And it contains a wealth of historic resources about the town. Some of the items in this room, namely the Benjamin H. Conant collection, the Wenham Museum processed and digitized previously with a CPA grant. And there are about 3,700 images taken in town from about, the late 1880s through the early 1900s. And we were able to get that collection processed. That was about a $30,000 project to do that, to have all of those things cataloged, scanned, and rehoused in archival grade storage materials. We would be looking to do some of the same with some of the other items in here. Joe, if you could go to the next slide. Just to give you an example of what's in here, we have maps, many different maps of the town over time, documents related to families and organizations that operate in our community. Joe, if you could go to the next slide, excuse me. We have photographs, scrapbooks, diaries, account books. You can see in this image, there are things that reference the Wenham Lake ice business, the lake itself. If you could go to the next slide, Joe. Thank you. We have a lot of community photographs. For example, this was a men's outing in the early 20th century to Canopy Lake Park. Of the men of Wenham went on a field trip together, to Canopy Lake, and we have other really charming, types of this kind of information in these collections. If you go to the next slide. We also have a large volume of books, some of which are rare, some of which are just, quite old, that talk about different families, genealogies, different, things that are related to the history of the town of Wenham. Go to the next slide. And this is an example of one of the historic photographs from the Conant collection that we digitized with our last CPA grant. This is a snow scene from January 1894. You want to go to the next one? That's actually Main Street. That's 1A. And this is another view of 1A, heading towards Beverly, back when we had those horse-drawn trolleys and things like that. So we have looked at the things that we have in this space, and also in another room in the museum, we have several more file cabinets of documents. That room's called the Pickering Library. It's named for Colonel Timothy Pickering, who was Quartermaster General in the Revolutionary War and had his farm here on Lurch Row in Wenham, and his sort of city house was in Salem, the Pickering House, which you can tour presently on Broad Street. So we have looked at these resources. Our collections manager and our archival intern, who's a graduate student we have with us from Tufts right now, have spent some time going through everything to estimate the personnel hours required to process all these collections. And then we used, the average of the salary rate from, professional association volumes that say what the going rate is for an archivist, and basically have done the math to figure out what it would cost to process these items. I think this would be, in terms of making the resources available to the public, a very significant, phase one of getting intellectual control of all of these items and getting them digitized. And then a phase two would require some community and stakeholder engagement from museum staff using regular museum operating budget funds to really say to the public, okay, now in the 21st century, how do you want this information to be available to you via web or through other things? We do have some books in the museum that share some of this information, but we know that those books are complete. There are missing stories, missing perspectives that are not included in those volumes. And we also know that, by and large, people are not coming to the museum to buy these books. I mean, we sell maybe like 10 a year. So in the 21st century, are people looking to consume this information through short videos or more information on social media or blogs, or what is really going to be the way that we want to get this information out? So that would be a phase two and would be subject of a later grant. But at least as a phase one, we would process all of the things that we have in the museum that are quote unquote Wenham things. Now, as I said to the HDC, there are some things that are mixed in here that we could have a reasonable debate about. Is this a Wenham object or not? If somebody lived in Wenham, moved to Vermont, died there, and their children sent their diaries back, are those Wenham items or are they Vermont items? I mean, we could have some of those kinds of hair splitting conversations, but by and large, we treat these collections for their value and perspective on our local history and that of our community. This would be a significant project. I know we have 2 grants this year. I know there are big numbers on both of them, and I also know that the CPC has been always very helpful to the Wenham Museum. So I also just want to say that you have a lot of really important decisions to make on allocating your resources. And if you can't fund this grant in full or recommend both grants, that, that we understand. I mean, I feel like we're on the same team, as the town and trying to do this. We eventually get our collections processed. It's just a question of time, but to really try to do this with better alignment with the master planning, more resources earlier helps this get done more quickly. I would say as between our two applications, it's easier to fund a facilities project sort of all as one chunk or something like a collections processing project. That's always the goal, to do it at once, but it would be easier to say, okay, if we got X amount of money to process this collection, we know we can do all the maps, all the diaries, and all the, pick another category of item and continue to work incrementally. So, I don't want to undercut our own applications, but I also just want to be just cognizant of the fact that, there are a lot of really important priorities, I think, for the town right now through CPA and through the master plan, probably this year and the next upcoming years as well. So, so I just wanted to mention that also as part of this, conversation. So Joe, if you could go to the next slide, just wanted to summarize some of this data as a threshold matter. Oh, we should go back one. That would be great. Sorry. That the collections in question have been reviewed by the historical commission in town, which also is the HDC. They wear sort of two hats as needed, and they've been deemed to be significant to the history and culture of Wenham. That designation makes this project eligible for CPA funding under the statute. We think the whole project cost is going to come in around $133.5. We've asked CPA for $93.5. And should we be successful in getting funding, we would put an RFP out, to secure an independent archivist with a goal of a start date in January 2025. And we think this would be a 12 to 18 month process. At about month 12 of the process, we think we should be sufficiently down the road with this to know how to have completed some stakeholder engagement and to know how the community would like to consume this information, and then could come up with a plan for the next phase as to how to make this information available, to the public. And Joe, on the last slide, there's a couple of examples that were specifically cited by the master planning goals that mention the Wenham Museum to talk about guided history tours, audio tours, live tours, a web map, a brochure. The things in that EG parentheses are easily going to be $12,000 to $15,000, to produce and to create and steward. And then, the things referenced in 5M, to work in collaboration with the museum to expand events and things like that.
Kristen, I'm going to break in. You have about 4 minutes to finish up your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm almost done, so thank you. These are also really great, projects that will require some resources to support staffing or expanded staffing to help bring some of these things to life. So we're trying to work now, to get organized for this eventuality. And that concludes, what I had to say about this grant application. And I'm happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Well, Kristen, thank you very much for that enlightening presentation. I didn't realize there was so much data down there to capture. Thank you. We'll have about 10 minutes now for a question and answer. If you just want to raise your hand or announce yourself, we're a pretty small group tonight, and ask questions. Oh, well, good. I guess you've answered everything, Kristen. What our follow-up is, if people do come up with questions, they'll submit them to Joe and he'll transfer them to you and then return the replies, and then Joe will distribute to all of us. Okay? Great. Thank you for spending the time with us tonight.
Great job, Kristen. Very complete.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. My pleasure. And thank you all for being here already at 8 o'clock to hear all these applications. So appreciate that. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was a long night. We did good. This is the time where we open up the floor to any unanticipated topics from the last 48 hours. Please bring them forward. They could just be being put on our list for the next agenda as well, if you don't want to discuss them tonight, but this is our opportunity to chat. Okay.
I
Then
think
I'm
Well,
Patricia
I'm
has a-
sorry, Rick, maybe I should say, I think we
Patricia.
already mentioned this. The next meeting, we should be able to, I think, Catherine, Joe, and I have a more or less organized plan for that new job. But that
Yes,
may
that will
already be on the agenda.
That will be on the agenda. If it is not, I think it is. Our
Okay.
next meeting is a week from tonight, same time, same format. Are we good with this format, everybody?
Yes.
We can make it happen?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I was a little smoother than the owl, so. I want to maybe thank everybody for their attention and their good questions. If you have more questions, please get them to Joe.
Hey, Rick,
Yes,
Patricia has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Patricia.
see it.
Oh, it's okay. I guess I was just bringing back up my question from earlier about the conservation commissions, and we don't have to answer it today. Maybe this is for deliberation, so tell me if I'm out of sequence. I was just wondering if there was additional due diligence we needed to do along the same lines as you've been investigating the bond, in that it also is there's a large sum of money for no project, and if that's allowable, you know.
Okay, I can explain a little bit what I know, and I've actually asked Stuart to help me with this too.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission has a conservation fund. It's something that each town can set up. It's a state Commonwealth authorized thing. It's a specific formula, whatever, a specific program that you can put money into and then later buy open space land for conservation out of.
Okay.
And they're asking us to fund this fund.
Okay.
And I got from Stuart, I said, well, they're asking for this amount of money. And what was his thoughts? I'm sharing his thoughts. First thing was 3 letters, WOW exclamation point. That funding at this level has never happened. So we would be doing something new and groundbreaking if it's appropriate. But that's what I know.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Catherine?
I think also for a later agenda, but Patricia made me think about it. When we got the presentations from the town hall for open space bonding and from the Concom for the fund, it occurred to me that if we could ask them to sort of put their heads together and see if there's some overarching strategy that they could come forward to the CPC with sort of one request that achieved the same goals of, you know, having money accessible for open space, obviously an important issue, but they seemed to be a little bit competitive. And if they both were pretty big asks. So I didn't know if it was appropriate or possible to sort of see if we could ask the town for an overall strategy.
Is there support for that on our team? I'll definitely.
I agree. Yes.
I agree also.
Great.
Is that
I
something
will
we
make
can
that
do?
request. Joe and I will make that request of administration and Concom for our next meeting. We'll put it at the beginning like we are doing our other topics at the beginning. And then
right.
We'll
and Rick,
yes,
and Rick, on the point about the bonding, it sounds like you and Joe and maybe Stuart are going to consolidate the legal opinions and the emails so that we on the committee can understand the thoughts that each of them have contributed to that question about the bonding.
Yes, I will. Now that I got your okay to go further with this, I'll do that. Yes. Because I was all leading up to that point. Yeah, exactly. I will summarize in 3 or 4 paragraphs. Say what? I'm sorry?
A culmination. A culmination. Yes.
So could I ask, are we asking for them to get together and make a decision and talk to us next week when we meet? Is that what we're asking them to do?
Yes. To Catherine's question, ask them to put their heads together and come up with a strategy for the property. And maybe I'll work with Catherine to kind of more clearly enunciate that request.
Joe has his hand up.
Yeah, I have to look at the agenda, but I think there'll definitely have to be some sort of amendment if that's going to happen for the next meeting. I don't.
Yes. So I'll get a question out tomorrow. That'll be plenty of time. Yeah. Other questions? Great meeting, people. I think this is great. I think we're really coalescing as a group. I'm so excited. This is going to be probably one of our biggest years ever. and we're going to be faced with some challenges, but I really believe we're all just in it together and being very respectful, and I super appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I ask
I
one
will take
question?
a-
Rick, I do as
Yes.
well, and I want to say you're doing a great job as chair.
Thank you.
I agree.
Yes,
Thank
agreed.
you. I'm not looking for a compliment. I just want to make sure that we're doing the
No.
best we can do. That's my job.
Patricia, sorry, do you have a?
Sorry, I just have a question on process. So we're reviewing all of these and we will have a time to deliberate. At that point, if we deliberate and have further questions, can we ask questions of the applicants, or is this really our only chance for questions or amendments to their proposals?
We can ask for questions and amendments up until the time they're presented at town meeting, if
Okay,
we've moved them forward, right? So we're going to make a recommendation to the town as this is the best way to spend the town's money. And we can keep modifying it until we get to town meeting. If that's not
thank
correct,
you.
someone can correct me, but I believe that's the case.
I think you're right.
Because we'll
Nice
have
to know
a
how much
meeting.
to annoy Joe with my questions. So yeah, that's fine.
That's okay.
Thanks,
That's good.
everyone.
We will have a meeting just before the annual town meeting. So hopefully you all can make it. And if we have to make it Zoom because people aren't going to be coming to the town meeting, we will. But that's in our tradition that in the morning right before the town meeting, we get together and just review what's going to be said at the meeting. If they're going to present, who's going to present what, how they're going to do it, who's going to be in. So we kind of get it all together. So we have a nice kind of seamless presentation. Alden.
And just to confirm, the next meeting is a week from tonight, 6:30.
Correct, 6:30
Zoom.
via Zoom.
Thank you.
Yes. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Great.
we're going to take a motion to adjourn at 8:04 p.m. on January 17th. Our next meeting will be January 24th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom.
January 20. Perfect. Thank
Second,
you.
seconding that motion?
Second.
It was seconded.
Okay, great. Thank you. Didn't hear it. Thank you.
Do we need to vote?
I'm going to
to
go around the
adjourn?
room.
No?
Yes.
Miss Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Miss Burt,
Yes.
Miss Anderson.
I'm sorry, I do have one thing. Unfortunately, it just occurred to me that January 24th is my daughter's 6th birthday.
You should probably be there for that.
And we'll probably have, is there any way, and I should have emailed about this before, but
No.
if there's any way to move that meeting, that would be great. And if not, I understand, but it's like.
We're a little tight on time, given that. So let me work with Joe on that tomorrow.
It's
But the other thing
okay.
you
I
can
just want to
do.
make sure you have a quorum.
Oh, I think we will, because I think
Okay.
Leo will be back from Florida by then. But you can always review the tape.
I will.
I'm trying to get a ruling. Let's go around the vote. Let's adjourn, then we'll talk about that. So, Miss Anderson, yay or nay to adjourn?
Okay.
Miss Gruitz
Yay.
and Mr. Woodland is yes. We are adjourned. Just so, how do I?